Hello, grade 11s. This is mechanics. There are many topics under mechanics. We are going to deal with now with vectors in 2 dimension. In this video, we are going to do number 1 and number 2, that is introduction and the sketch the vertical vector and the horizontal vector on the Cartesian plane. Okay. Let's start with the definition that we have here, that is a resultant. The vector sum of 2 or more vectors, that is the single vector having the same effect as 2 or more vectors together. Resultant is defined as the vector sum of 2 or more vectors, that is the single vector having the same effect as 2 or more vectors together, which means we combine the vectors to have a single vector, that is a resultant. Vectors to a single vector, that is a resultant. Let me make an example. Let's say we have this object, this block, which is 2 kg. Then someone is applying a force here. Let's say this force is 2 newtons. Then another one is applying a force here, and this force is, for example, is 4 newtons, right? So there are 2 forces here, one supposed to win here. Okay, if this object moves in this direction, therefore the resultant is to the right. Then if it moves to the left, the resultant is to the left. Remember, in grade 10 we dealt with the resultant of the vectors in 1 dimension, that is like this one, right? So what we used to do in grade 10 is to choose the direction. Usually we always take right as positive if there is a force to the right, or a vector to the right and a vector to the left. So we take right as positive, which means this one will be positive, this one will be negative. Okay, so if we calculate FRS only on one line, we deal with horizontal only, or we deal with vertical only. So in this case we have horizontal forces. So we have force 1, that is horizontal, plus force 2 only. Then we add these forces. So the first force is this one, which is -4, plus the second force is +2. So we get -2 newtons. Okay, remember, a force is a vector and we are dealing with the vectors here. So if it is negative, you have to change it to a positive. That negative tells us that this object will move in the negative direction. Remember, we said take right as positive, therefore the negative direction is left. Then once you remove this positive, this negative, you write left. That is the resultant force in this case. Okay, this is the resultant. Another thing that we dealt in grade 10 is just to know the vectors. The vectors are defined as physical quantities with both magnitude and the direction. Then here we have a line which represents the magnitude. Then we have an arrow that tells us the what? The direction. In this case, if there is an object here, this object is pulled to the left. Okay, now if you can look here, the magnitude of this force, now let's say this one is force 1, this one is force 2. The magnitude of this force is 2. Then the direction is right. And if you can look at the line, this line is shorter than this one, which means the magnitude of a force in this line is greater than the magnitude of a force in this line, right? So that is the resultant in one dimension. Okay, remember we said we're going to introduce, then we sketch the vertical and horizontal vectors. Now let's sketch the vertical and horizontal on a Cartesian plane. The Cartesian plane, it has the x-axis. We have the x-axis horizontal. Then we have the y-axis, that is vertical. This is the origin, that is 0. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to the positive infinity. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, up to the positive infinity. Then above we have 1, 2, 3, up to positive infinity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to positive infinity. Here we have -1, -2, -3, up to the negative infinity, right? Then here we have -1, -2, -3, up to the negative infinity. Now we are about to represent the vectors on a Cartesian plane. Let's just use this example we have here. Now we have what? 2 newtons to this positive side. So which means we are going to draw from 0 to 2. This is force number 2, which is equal to 2 newtons. Okay, then we have the second force to the negative x-axis. So it's 4, which means we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe -4 is here. 4. That is what? F1. That is F1, which is equal to 4 newtons in this direction. So in this case, we're done representing what? The forces on a Cartesian plane. Let's take one example. So with this example, they say draw the following forces as vectors on a Cartesian plane. So we are going to draw the Cartesian plane first, then we draw the forces. Okay, so this is the horizontal line, horizontal axis, that is x. Then we have the vertical axis, that is y. So this one is x. Then we have origin here. So we have 1, positive, positive 2, positive 3, up to positive infinity. Okay, then we have positive 1 here, positive 2, positive 3, up to positive infinity. But here we have negative numbers. Okay, that is -1, -2, -3, -4, njalo njalo, up to negative infinity. Even here we have -1, -2, -3, up to negative infinity. Okay, now we have two forces. Force 1, which is 1,5 newtons in the positive x-axis. So we have 1,5 in the positive x-axis. So these are the x-axis. So the positive x-axis is this one. So we are going to draw a line up to 1,5 to the positive x-axis. 1,5 supposed to be here. So this force is force 1, which is equal to 1,5 newtons. Then we have force number 2, which is 2 newtons in the positive y-axis. 2 newtons, 1, 2 in the positive axis. So there is an arrow that represents the vector, the direction. So it's force 2, which is equal to 2 newtons. So if you can see here, we have two forces, x and y. This is horizontal, this is vertical. There are two forces, which means these are the vectors in 2 dimensions. Okay, These are the forces, vectors in 2 dimensions. Now let's go to the second example. So we have 3 forces that we need to draw. Okay, 3 forces that we need to draw. So the first thing, we draw the axis. So we have x-axis, we have y-axis. So we have the origin. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here are the positive x-axis. These are y-axis. These are negative x-axis. These are negative y-axis. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. But here it's -1, -2, -3, -4. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, we are from the origin, that is 0, 1, but negative. 0, 1, but positive. So up 1, positive. 0, 1, negative. So we have -1, -2, -3. Okay, now let's represent these forces here on the Cartesian plane. So we have the first one, which is 3 newtons in the positive x-axis, which means we have this force up to 3, right? This is force number 1, which is 3 newtons. Okay, we have force number 2, 1 newton in the negative x-axis. So we have 1 newton. This is the force number 2, which is 1 newton in the negative. Then we have 3 newtons in the positive y-axis. So we have 3 newtons in the positive y-axis. That is force number 3, which is equal to 3 newtons in the positive y-axis. Okay, so this is the origin. That is 0, 1, 2, 3. 0, 1. 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is how we represent the vectors in a Cartesian plane as horizontal and vertical vector. So this one is y, that is vertical. This is vertical vector. This one is x, this is horizontal vector. So this one is also on x, this is horizontal vector also. So the next video we are going to calculate the resultant in 2D using the Pythagoras theorem or the theorem of Pythagoras. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.